Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming along. I have received apologies from Clive Towsley Hinton and from Martin Smith. Because of circumstances, they aren't able to make any other substitutions. Do we have any other apologies?
Thank you, Chair. Not yet. I'm trying to contact Councillor Roxanne Ellis, but I've not had a reply yet.
Okay. Thank you very much. We have before us the minutes of the last meeting. Is someone happy to approve the minutes of the last meeting? Quite short because most of the information is confidential. I'll move. Will someone second the minutes? Thank you very much. All those in favour of accepting the minutes of the last meeting, thank you very much. Do we have any declarations of interest on today's items? None of you own pavement cafes in any way, shape or form. Okay, so in that case, I will move quickly on to the update on pavement licences under the Business and Planning Act 2020, and I'm going to ask Mr Nealon to address the report, and then of course you can ask any questions. Thank you.
Well, it was really just a point of answering any questions. If anybody's got any, if they've read through the report, that's probably the best way to do it. Councillor Smith, Chair.
Got my microphone. I think the important question for us is the suggested fee fair and proportionate? And I'd like a little bit of discussion around that, if you don't mind. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. You preempted my question there. Thanks for the report. I just want to understand, maybe if you could explain where the £100 figures come from. I totally understand why you'd charge a fee based on the staffing hours, but I just want to understand how that's calculated, because the whole point of this pavement licensing scheme, which I think is absolutely fantastic for our businesses. I've enjoyed sitting on the pavements in Burton, Joyce and other areas to enjoy the hospitality. I think the government introduced it for the right reasons, and that was to support businesses during those tough times. And I worry that if we're charging £100 for businesses who have had a really horrible 18 months, then that seems a bit high for me. And I just want to understand how we got to that figure, please.
Yeah, no problem. So through you, Chair, if I may. So the licensing regime for cafe licences traditionally sat with the County Council. However, when the COVID pandemic began, there was all sorts of bits of legislation introduced to try and free up businesses and try and support local businesses and get things back to normal. So the Business Planning and the Business and Planning Act was given to the district councils, and we were the authority to administer the licences. And it was a completely new area for us. We didn't know what the uptake was going to be. We didn't know how businesses were going to start to venture into the world of pavements. The licences could licence any land next to the highway, so it didn't need to be the front of the premises. So you could effectively have a bit of land on the opposite side of the highway if you wanted. So we're really unsure where we were going to go with it, and we were very keen that we wanted to make sure that it was free. So we didn't give a charge for it, on the understanding that we was only going to have it until September of this year, when it was going to go back to the county. So during that period, we had 5 applications for street cut. Well, I think there were 6 applications, but we issued 5. And it was a bit of a learning curve for us, for officers. So literally myself and the licensing officer had to go out with a tape measure and work with the businesses, and it pretty much came down to that, about positioning chairs, and we were almost moving furniture around to see how it would fit on the pavement, and measuring. It was probably the only way to do it. And I'm not saying that that's needs to be done on every case, but I think it demonstrates the level of officer input which was needed to make sure you get it right. The worry that we had is that we do issue a licence on the highway and it acts as an obstruction, or it hinders another business's access to their premises. So when Mr. Jenrick said that he wanted it to stay for another year, and he gave us the opportunity to introduce a charge, we pretty much worked out that on average, based on the ones that we've got, we think it is about 3.5 hours of various officer time. So that's a little bit of customer services time. They've got to accept the call and log it onto the council system. It falls then down to the licensing officer. They need to start to pore over the application, look at the plans, look at the application, make sure it's right. It needs to be entered onto the system. Some of them we need to consult with partners, so we need to speak to the police authority. We'll often speak to the highways team to see if they've got any objections. We have a little bit of work to do probably with other departments. I'm thinking of the Parks and Street Care team, because they've got a little bit of involvement with the pavement environment, and the council's legal team often get involved. So based on that, and the fact that the £100 was the maximum amount that the Act could allow us to charge for, that was the figure that was settled on. So myself and the Chair and Vice Chair today had some discussion about that. And this afternoon, Mr. Gibbs, thank you very much, Paul, has done a little bit of work, and we've asked 4 of the district councils across the county what their provision was. Now, I think most didn't charge any for the period between it being introduced until September up to this year. I think there was one local authority which charged the maximum amount of £100, but that was in the south of the county. I think most local authorities are looking to introduce a charge for the period of September 2021 to 2022. So we've asked 4 district councils, and 2 are charging £75. One, other than Gedling, is charging £100, and one is charging nothing. If that answers your question.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks, did that preempt your question?
It did, thank you, Chair.
Oh, I wondered if it might have done. Does anyone else have any questions? Councillor Paul? I do know you're not.
Thank you, Chair. It's not a question as such. It's just I just want to voice my support. I think Kevin has described the rationale behind the charge perfectly. It does involve officer time, and I don't think we can have a situation where we're effectively subsidising the extra business and not charging. It does appear to be in keeping with other authorities, and I just want to voice my support for for the proposal in front of us.
Thank you. Councillor Truscott.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree also. I think £100 is a very small price to pay. OK, we know everybody's had a hard time under the pandemic, but these pavement licensing has enabled some places to actually double the amount of customers they can deal with, because they've got as many tables and chairs outside on the pavement as they have inside their premises. So obviously they're making a hell of a lot more money out of it. And on top of that, I know this is all being given approval, but on Mapley Top, the amount of tables and chairs distributed over the pavement is making it like an obstacle course for normal people to get round, and for people with wheelchairs and prams to get round. I think that this ought to be looked at again.
Thank you. Councillor Gibbons.
Yeah, so my view, is there a scale in relation to the size of the business? Because I do notice that, there's a certain, say a small cafe that probably has 4 or 5 seats outside, as opposed to a larger establishment that may have 20 to 30 outside, or one might be a well-known coffee chain. Is there a sort of scale?
No, there's no scale as such. It really does depend on the business itself. So those premises on Mapley, which you're talking about, whilst they have got quite a few tables and chairs outside, they did want a few more, and they actually wanted to extend to the junction of Westdale Lane and Woodborough Road. So we looked at that. Yeah, we looked at that and we decided that it was unmanageable for the business. I think they'd over exceeded it. I think it was too far for them to carry glasses. It was too far for them to keep an eye on the customers and manage them safely. I think it was going to be difficult for them to keep the tables clean and perhaps understand the age of people who were drinking and ordering there. So it really is, it's not necessarily about the location, it's about the safety and manageability of it. It was put to me that there would be no reason, for instance, why the Urnale in Arnold wouldn't be able to apply for the council for a seating area on the Eagle Square, which is across the road. And if they could demonstrate that they could ferry drinks to and glasses back from securely over a period of time, this is the sort of thing that would need to be considered. We can't say no without considering an application, but as you can imagine, in that period between the legislation coming in and the 1st of September, through those 6 applications, each has got to be considered on its own merit. And as I say, we got 7 or we got 6 and we issued 5. So that's where we are with it. And I'm expecting a few more to come now, probably people or businesses that will be lining up, bits of pavement where they can generate trade from through next summer. It's going to die down during the winter period. But there's no scale, but I can understand you would think it would be, because traditionally people think it's the seating area outside your premises. It doesn't necessarily need to be. It's adjacent to the highway, so it could be a bit further away.
Thank you. Councillor Bosworth.
Am I correct in thinking these 5 licences that you gave out for the whole of Gedling?
Yeah, that was it. So it was.
But they're all over the place, tables. I mean, is there any kind of check? I mean, it doesn't seem fair that some people do it legally and some people are doing it illegally.
Yes, that's a very good point. So businesses that apply to the council will be given a licence by the council, and then we will be the enforcing regulatory authority for that seating area. Businesses which choose to put seating outside of their premises on the highway without a licence from Gedling Borough Council will fall under the licensing enforcement regime of Nottinghamshire County Council.
Thank you for that. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Chair. I've gone backwards and forwards on this all day. But, I mean, obviously, this all came about because of the situation regarding COVID, and it allowed some businesses originally, when this happened, to trade at all, because otherwise they couldn't. So I totally understand why it was free. And in an ideal world, until we are completely free of all this, if that ever happens, then, of course, in my heart, that's what I would like to see. But we are asking taxpayers essentially to fund businesses to continue, in some cases, as has been mentioned, to almost double their capacity. And that doesn't seem the right thing to happen. The anomaly, as has been described by Mr. Nealon, is shocking, but there we are. But having given a lot of thought to this, I think £100 seems to be a fairly valid amount of money for what's being offered. And I just hope that should we find ourselves in the terrible situation we were in 18 months ago, the government would do something about that. And I don't suppose it would be down to the council to do anything about it, but I'm sure the government could find themselves in a position to waive these fees. So I am going to support this.
Thank you very much. Has everyone had their say?
Just to summarise, I think businesses who do apply for the licence are going to pay £100 for that licence, but then they have got to go out and fund the extra chairs and tables themselves. And I worry, like Councillor Brooks has said, about if there is another lockdown, which hopefully there won't be, their business will get tough again, and that £100, or even if we charge 75 quid, that little saving there could be the difference between furloughing someone part-time or not. So I welcome the licence extension, but on the basis of the cost, I'm just going to abstain on that because I think we could be charging less, maybe 75 quid, and I'm concerned about that.
On the basis of that, would you like to modify the recommendation? Fairly. Yeah, okay. I can ask.
Well, I'd propose 75 quid.
Right, okay. Okay, so we'll vote on the proposal that's already down on the paperwork as the recommendation. One, to note the report and the statutory obligations, which we have done, so I'm sure that we can all vote in favour of that part. Would you like to just confirm that you've considered everything that you can think of, consider those in favour of accepting that part of the reports?
Excuse me, Chair, could I just have some clarification? Have I got this right? If Gedling do not charge the fee, do Nottinghamshire Council charge a fee? Do they charge a fee?
The licensing function to issue the licence has moved to the district council, so we will be the person who administers the issuing of the licence, but the enforcement for unauthorised seating areas remains with the county council under highways legislation. So they will have existing budgets to carry out enforcement on people who, in their opinion, block the highways, but we will deal with conditions which are not complied with to Gedling Council issued licences, if that makes sense.
So, just for me, so if they haven't got a licence from Gedling, and then if they're found from the county council to be have broken the law, so to speak, they will be fined.
Well, it really is down to the county council to pursue those cases, not the district council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Gibbons.
Just one final thing. I think that it's likely that this will remain with the district council is probably my view after that. And I think that it's likely that if it comes after September 22 and we're out of the pandemic, if the council is going to be the licensing authority, I don't know, I'm only guessing, but if we are continuing to be locally the licensing authority, which would make more sense, I think, for us to be the licensing authority, considering it's a local issue, then it's likely that any amendment to the already amended regulations would likely to give us some sort of enforcement power moving forward, if that offers some reassurance to you.
Thank you. Councillor Bosworth.
This is just something slightly different. What about if there was planning to have a Christmas market on the pavements? Would we have to apply for a licence for that?
No, not under this legislation, because this relates to cafe pavement licences,
right,
where people
okay.
will be eating and drinking, and there's removable furniture. I think there's ample provision for the couple of Christmas markets we've got. It's not my area of expertise, to be fair, Councillor, but I think the Christmas market in Eagle Square is firmly established, and I think changes have been made to
I was just thinking about
accommodate.
on the pavement in the village where I am, we were thinking of doing one because the developer who owns the square would charge us, and we were going to put it round the highway part of it, and people could use the square to go to it.
All right, I say, well, I'll be
That's something totally different.
It is. I'll be happy to talk with you separately about that, Councillor, and we can discuss that. You've got my contact details.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. So are you happy to vote on the recommendation number 1, that we have noted the report and had a substantial discussion? Those in favour, please. Thank you very much. So moving on to item 2, do we agree to introduce an application fee of £100 for pavement licences? Those in favour, please show. Oh, I thought I'm terribly sorry. I propose, and would someone like to second that we accept? Thank you very much. Those in favour of a £100 licence fee, please show. Those against? Thank you. That means there's no abstention. Councillor Smith, would you like to propose an alternative? Oh, it was part. Thank you. It's now time to exclude the press and public as we move into the confidential items. So would someone move that? Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Those in favour of excluding the press and public, thank you very much.